Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. For those who are joining us for the first time, my name is Alina Bonadonna, and I'm thrilled to be your moderator today. And today we have just incredible pleasure of hosting the stars of Podcast Don't Eat Poop. Francine and Matt, welcome you guys. How are you?
Very good.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming here. And we already had some like a small warm up session here, and I'm really convinced that today's webinar will be not like the others we had before. So I promise that it will be real fun. Yeah. And before we begin, let's do just a brief technical check. Please click on one of the reaction icons at the bottom left corner of your screen to confirm that you can see us and interact with the platform. So I don't see enough hearts. Now, yes, I see enough hearts. And yeah, guys, just be ready to receive a lot of hearts like these during the session today because our audience is super, super warm and welcome, warmly welcome. So now, without further ado, give a warm virtual welcome to our guests. And guys, stage is yours.
Awesome.
Thank
And
you. Thank you for having
is the
us.
presentation up? I can't see it.
Yes,
Oh,
it's now up.
great. Awesome. Um, okay, well, we will start here. My name is Matthew Regusci, and uh, I've been in the industry in the food compliance industry for 20 years, mainly on the supplier side. And Francine and I will be talking about a lot of topics today. But Francine, why don't you introduce yourself today?
So, my name is Francine Shaw, and I have been in the industry for more decades than I want to tell you. And I am in extreme denial. And I worked primarily on the retail side until the last few years. I've got my experience runs the gamut regulatory, education, retail. There's not an aspect of the industry that I haven't worked in. So I'm not going to bore you with any more details about that. We're going to move on to the next slide and start our presentation. Maybe we're going to move on to the next slide. So, what's in a name, Matt?
Yeah. So Francine and I, because I worked mainly on the supplier side and certification, um, Francine worked mainly on the retail side in inspections and certification. So she and I partnered together kinda many years ago, like over a decade ago. And she and I had amazing conversations. We would talk for like hours sometimes about all these obscure things that are happening in the food safety, food compliance world worldwide. And after a few years, she and I were like, I wonder if we started recording these conversations, if people would actually be interested uh, in actually listening to it. Uh, and sure enough, people were, but it took like a few years later. And then um, uh, Francine was like, let's just do this. And
I
then
know
we
a
did it.
guy. It was like, I know a guy. And I think Matt was shocked within like 2 weeks. It was like, I know a guy. I had a logo. And it was like, let's do this. And it was Valentine's Day 2 years ago when we recorded our first session. And
Yeah.
shockingly enough, people are listening.
And so then, as you know, Francine's like, I know a guy. We started talking to this guy, started getting all the equipment that we needed to do in order to do a podcast. And then we're like, we should name this thing. And so Francine and I come up with a couple dozen different names of what we're going to call our podcast. You could just think about what type of names you would name a food safety podcast, right? Um, and they all seemed kind of boring. And then I said, there's this guy that I remember when I first started my career named Dr. Doug Powell from he was a professor at K-State, a Canadian guy, and he would talk all the time like end presentations or really just say stuff, and he would say profound things and profane things. But one of the things he said all the time was "Don't eat poop," being really young in my career, like 20 something years ago, I was like, man, that just hits home about don't eat poop. And so I told Francine, let's do this. So I want to give Dr. Powell his due. We totally ripped this from him. But yeah, so then Francine is like, oh no, do I really want to co-host a podcast named Don't Eat Poop?
Yeah, he was trying to destroy me, I think is what he was trying to do, because I had a fairly pristine um, image in the industry. It's like Matt could say things that I could not say. And I was really concerned. But that being said, we went with don't eat poop. And if we can go to the next slide, um, it fit because, most foodborne illnesses come from ingesting fecal matter. One way or another, it's the fecal oral route.
Yummy.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent my, I've made a living talking about ingesting poop in one way or another. I mean, that's what we talk about. It gets on the food, it gets on your hands, and then one way or another, it ends up in your mouth, and you get sick, and it's disgusting, it's gross. But that's what the majority of these illnesses come from. And while we may not be eating it from the plate like our logo shows, it certainly made the point. And so I kicked and screamed, but I agreed to go with it. And that's what we did. So if we
After
go to the
20
next,
years of building up this amazingly professional image, one podcast episode and we ruined it, Francine.
if we can go to the next slide. So, don't eat poop just seemed like the logical name, and we went with it. And it's unique, it made sense, and it stuck. And that is the question that we are asked the most often. So that's where we wanted to start. Why don't eat poop? And it just seemed logical. So we went with it. And with that, we're going to get started with our presentation. If we can go to the next slide. So, what we're going to talk about today is consumer expectations, how they're creating industry change, developments in food safety, the current tariff wars, customs fraud, and food fraud. And I promise that we're not going to turn this into a political presentation. We are not going to do that. But given what we do and how we have operated our podcast over the last few years, we've had a lot of opportunity to speak with a lot of people, presidents, CEOs, people from the FDA, regulatory folks, industry experts, authors, auditors, you name it. We've had the opportunity to speak to these people. And our conversations have revolved around a lot of things, from food additives to regulatory compliance, imports, exports, foodborne illnesses, outbreaks. Probably most of you have heard of Bill Marler. We've had him, Darren Detweiler. There's not a lot of people that we've not had from genres on our podcast. So we've had a lot of experts, and those industry experts, and while we may not be experts in all of these fields, it's given us a lot of education and unique perspectives. And we also have our, if you've listened to the podcast, you know this, we have our own opinions and insights as well.
Definitely have our own
And
opinions and insights.
definitely our own opinions. And we don't always agree, which you will hear as well too on the podcast. And so this is what today's discussion is going to lead to.
And we're going to be talking very broadly. So if you're, what we're going to be talking about when we look at consumer expectations and how they're driving the global marketplace, when we're looking at major new developments and revolutionary developments within technological developments within the industry, and when we're looking at international tariff wars and stuff like that, each one of these, if you've listened to our podcast before, you'll know that Francine and I could break out one small segment of each of these and talk a full hour on all. But because there's so much stuff going on in the industry, we're going to be talking very broadly on what's going on and provide some broad solutions for each of these. Yeah, so it's not a deep dive. It's definitely a broad conversation, but we would love to answer any questions in detail during the Q&A section.
So if we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, consumer expectations. Matt, you have a lot of experience in clean labels and transparency. You want to?
Yeah. So, like I said, my career has always been in food certification, and I'm currently the CEO of Ellipse Analytics, which is the analytical testing arm and certification body for Clean Label Project. So we have a lot of insight into what's going on with consumers, and then also what's going on with regulatory and legislation that is changing due to consumer expectations. Um, in Europe and in Asia, uh, the expectations from the consumer and from regulatory and legislation is actually significantly more stringent than in the United States. So the United States is playing catch up right now. If you haven't been paying attention, I know about half the audience is from other countries. With the new regime, which I'm sure people definitely know who's in right now, and with RFK Jr., there's been a huge push for make America healthy again. So what we're seeing is a lot of the expectations, and Francine and I did a whole entire podcast on what was it, the 20 things that are legal in the United States, 20 food items that are legal in the United States but illegal in other countries, something like that, Francine.
Right. Yes.
And a lot of these were in our pantry, and we're like, oh
Well,
no.
I mean, they're in our kitchens. I was devastated about some of this stuff. You know, Swiss rolls took me out. I mean, when I found out that Swiss rolls were on that list, I thought I was going to die. I love Swiss rolls. Um, some of the things that were on this list were Ritz crackers. When I was a kid, I can remember coming home from church and my dad would break out the Ritz crackers with peanut butter and we would sit there and have Ritz crackers and peanut butter on Sunday after church. I love Ritz crackers. Pop Tarts. Who doesn't have Pop Tarts in America in their cupboards? Skittles, the rainbow. We eat the rainbow. I mean, Skittles are all over the place in the States. I mean, yeah, we did an entire podcast on this. And, these are the things that maraschino cherries, these are the things that we're eating in America that other countries are forbidding. And clearly our government doesn't care that we're killing ourselves, but
Right,
it does. So it's a problem. Yeah, we did a
right.
whole podcast on that.
Right. I mean, really truly, like if you guys think about what happened, what our world was like in terms of food compliance 20 years ago compared to now, those of you that can remember 20 years ago, we were pushing pathogens. Everything was pathogens, 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 pathogens. I remember 20 years ago, I was giving a presentation, and I said, listen, there are two types of consumers in the world, right? There's the consumers that buy for quantity. They want the cheapest food possible, and that's what they go for. Calories, that's it. And then you have on the other side of the pendulum, you have the most quality centric people, the ones that don't care how much it costs. They want the best, healthiest, safest products possible for their body and for their family. One thing that both of these sides of the pendulum can agree upon is when they eat their food and they drink their beverages, they don't want to die, right? Like that is a really, really good thing to remember that everybody across the world, all consumers worldwide, when they consume products, they don't want to die, right? Like that's it. But what we're seeing now is um, as the world becomes richer, consumers now are really starting to push. Even the ones that were just the calorie counting consumers that really didn't care about quality as much. They're starting to see with testing, because testing has gone down. Like I own a laboratory. I might run a laboratory for testing of chemicals. While that equipment is expensive and the instruments are expensive and the talent is expensive, the testing isn't as much. It's gone down. Testing has gone down, which allows more testing to happen. We're seeing this right now with Nemesis's products, right? Like being able to go Nemesis's products, going out and being able to test your own stuff for pathogens. So testing has become a lot more ubiquitous, and as testing becomes more ubiquitous, and we are finding these pesticides, residual pesticides, and specifically heavy metals as well. In products, consumers are starting to get very, very worried. And they're also worried too, as we have gone from, living 40, 50, 60 years to now living 80, 90, 100 years. Cancer rates increasing significantly as well. So while people weren't worrying about what they ate when in their, teens, 20s, 30s, started worrying more in their 40s, like I am. Oh my gosh, I need to start, eating better. If you listen to my podcast, I've been terrible in the past. Um, that catches up with you, right? And consumers are now more conscious about what type of ingredients and what is behind the ingredients. What's on the label. They're very worried about, red dyes, um, seed oils, that type of stuff. But now they're also very, very worried about that the heavy metal side. And there was a huge thing here in the United States. Where we had product cinnamon from Ecuador that had food fraud and it had a bunch of lead in it. A brand utilized that in their product, got a bunch of kids sick from lead poisoning. And so the awareness that was on a vocal majority, let's say 20% of the population that were really vocal about what was going on in the food, the awareness became significantly larger to a much broader segment of the population that, oh my gosh, what is in my food that is not on the label may kill me, may make my children sick, may alter their brain so they are cognitively not able to be functioning at a high IQ level for the rest of their lives. And so while the whole entire world over the last decade has been really, really focusing on the pathogens, the future is looking at everything else. Um, and particularly on, not just what we're talking about with the food safety side, but also with, ethically sourced, is this coming from child labor, is this coming from forced labor, are you slashing and burning the rainforest, like all that type of stuff has been there on the periphery, but that's as we have to feed more and more people, that's also going to be an issue. And traceability as well. So in the United States, we passed this rule called FSMA 204, or Food Safety Modernization Act Rule 204, which is the new food safety and traceability rule. And it's going from looking at tracing product by SKU to tracing product by lot, and having that information from the restaurant or from the grocery store in an electronically sortable spreadsheet to the FDA within 24 hours. And while this is an American law, a good portion of the products in the United States are sourced from other countries, and a majority of the products that are ingredients are sourced from other countries. And so we have to be tracking that all the way down to the lot, and that will come into effect in the next couple of years. So when you're thinking about what the future looks like in terms of your brands, really be looking at not just the pathogens, but also what ingredients are being used, um, and what's behind the ingredients. And then also really looking, can you trace product back to the lot? If you're a processor or a producer, that may be a little easier. But if you're a distributor, a receiver, a restaurant, or a grocery store, that could be a lot more complex.
So I was waiting for you to take a breath.
Yeah, sorry, my bottle.
Every outbreak that we have, consumers become more aware. And in the United States in this past year, we have had several
Yes.
outbreaks with a lot of illnesses and deaths. And the nature of our business makes it even more it makes us even more aware, to the point that, last night I was eating a sandwich I had ordered and there was lettuce on it. And I'm thinking, God, I hope I don't die from this lettuce. How many months did I go last year without eating a salad? I wanted a salad really bad, and I wouldn't eat a salad. But anyway, my point is, it doesn't, yes, it affects us because of our industry and our knowledge to the extreme, but it's also affecting consumers and consumer awareness about their health and well-being, and safe food. And they are more aware than ever about food safety, and they're becoming more knowledgeable, and they're getting their knowledge from a variety of places, and they're living healthier lifestyles, and they're looking at things like, serving size. When I buy this bottle, is it one serving, or is it two servings, or is it 10 servings? How many calories are in that? I was taking my aunt, um, actually it's my husband's aunt, but she's like 83 years old, and I was taking her to Starbucks regularly because she loves Starbucks coffee. And she was getting a drink. This drink has nearly 500 calories in it. Now, she didn't know that, but I did. And she's getting one like a couple times a week, and she started to gain weight. And she was saying to my husband, gaining a lot of weight, and I don't know where this weight's coming from. He said, you're drinking a 500-calorie cup of coffee every day. She nearly had a fit because she had no idea this cup of coffee had that many calories in it. I mean, it wasn't hurting her. She's very thin. But anyway, organic. Is it really organic, or is it not? It needs to be properly labeled. Consumers want to know, they're consuming more organic food, but they need to know, what is it? Plant-based foods. Sustainability. They're buying plant-based foods. They want the protein that's in the plant-based foods. Um, Again, they want to know that they're not going to die when they eat their food. And then we're generally recognized as safe. That's something that we talk about in the Make America Healthy Again. And in the States, we're talking about that a lot. Some things that are on that list that I don't think that Americans realize are on that list that we eat every day: salt, sugar, yeast, and malt. Some of the items that you eat every day are on that list, and we don't even realize that they're on that list. And what you need to know about that list is that they don't always have FDA review or approval. So that's what generally recognized as safe items are. Um, so Dr. TikTok, let's talk about social media. And I want to get through this kind of quickly, but if you're not using social media and you're a national corporation, you're kind of missing the boat. Uh, a lot of consumers are getting their information, whether it's good or bad, from social media. Matt and I did an entire podcast about social media and the things that people are seeing on social media. And we've talked about the raw egg diet. We've talked about advice on nutritional content, the raw chicken diet. These are some of the bad things that people are seeing on social media.
Yeah,
But
and if
there
you're
are
not
some,
defining, if you're not on social media defining your brand, someone else will.
right. And um, this is an advice that they should be getting. But there are some corporations out there that are using social media. McDonald's, Pepsi, Coke, Heinz, they're using social media. And a company they have a fantastic social media team, and they hit their demographic. I mean, they're really killing it when it comes, not to use a term that we were using
Yeah, yeah,
negatively a
killing
while
it,
ago.
not killing them.
Not literally, but they're doing a fantastic job. Wendy's, they know their demographic. And if you go to X or Threads or TikTok, that company has going on when it comes to social media. I mean, they do a fantastic job. And
And that's a great place too for like I think a lot of food safety and quality people, when Francine and I talk about social media in conferences and that different in webinars, that different type of stuff, it kind of their eyes kind of glaze over. That's not really my job. Um, Both food safety, Francine and I talk about this a lot. Both food safety and marketing people are actually a lot more, or in quality, are a lot more similar than you would think. both have to say the same message day in and day out, the same thing over and over and over again for people to finally respond. so it's very much the same thing. We have very different SOPs. But if because consumers worldwide are becoming more and more interested in what they're eating and what's in it and all the food safety sides of it, this is a fantastic time for food safety and quality to partner with marketing to get your message out of what you're doing to keep your consumers safe. What does your traceability look like? What do your suppliers look like? Um, what makes your product unique in terms of the quality of those products? And that's what consumers are hungry for. They want to know when they're walking down that aisle and there's 14 different products that do the exact same thing. Why is your product better for them, healthier for them, safer for them than the other ones on there? I wouldn't go like, slash and burn your competition, but I would definitely highlight why you're better, quote unquote, than the others.
Right. I want to move to the next slide, but the last thing I want to say is make it fun and educational, and that's where you're going to capture your demographic in most cases. So the next thing that we want to talk about is the major developments in the food service industry, artificial intelligence and machine learning. And Matt, I'm going to let you go ahead and
Yeah, this is one of my favorite subjects ever. So there are a lot of people afraid of AI and machine learning. I think in the food safety and quality side, this is something that we should not be afraid of, but we should totally embrace. So we're going to talk about two different segments of this, and one is the AI side of things and how that's going to change the world, and also the robotic side of things and how that's going to change the world. While the consumer side and the international, what's going on internationally, sandwiched between AI, both of those are relevant, and they're going to affect the world and your world over the next decade. This is a revolution, and the people in the food safety and quality side that can really start embracing AI and robotics to figure out a way of altering and changing your company for the better, you are going to be what everybody is going to be looking for. So if you're thinking about your career, this is definitely where you should go. And some of the things that we're seeing right now with AI, obviously this is new, right? I mean, ChatGPT came out a couple years ago, so we're definitely in the forefront of it. And so you want to check to make sure the technology is right. Here are some things to look at when you're looking at technology. One is, how can I utilize this for inspections, both internally and also for my suppliers? And I had a client a few years ago that was looking at utilizing the Microsoft version of the goggles. I forget what they're called, the Microsoft glasses, which connects into Teams. And then you could actually have employees, or for this company, they had machines and they were doing food inspections in multiple different food plants across the world, and they were using that for their salespeople. Their technical salespeople were in these facilities all the time, and they were able to use these glasses to then have experts sitting in their office via team chats through these things, explain to that person what they should be looking for, what they should be seeing, how to do the maintenance check on the equipment. So instead of flying people, this is the middle of COVID, so they were trying to find solutions during COVID, but that didn't disappear, right? That solution now is part of their corporate culture. So instead of flying people, expensive experts all over the globe to try to fix very expensive equipment and maintain very expensive equipment, they were able to firefight things. Like, obviously, if it's broken, totally broken, can't be fixed by this guy, can't be fixed by this guy, but they could walk them through the diagnosis of things. That same technology, 20 years in the food safety certification world, that same technology will start being used by auditors, will start being used by inspectors, and that will change significantly the cost structure of those audits, which doesn't mean they're going to disappear, but it may mean that they're able to be done more frequently. And if they could be done more frequently, that means that ultimately your facilities could become safer. And then if you wanted to connect that with your suppliers, you could start checking in on that type of stuff. So that's one thing. The other thing is just the artificial intelligence can schedule better. AI can schedule better. So if you have a group of people across the world that need to be at different places, AI can connect their expertise, their region, their schedule, and quickly do it. Where right now it may take a person a couple hours, multiple phone calls to get that appointment scheduled. Now we're talking seconds. Um, and then also documents and quality, or sorry, and corrective actions. So there are so many documents that are being done both in quality inspections and in food safety SOPs and all that different type of stuff, and all the inspections that are being done, the corrective actions that need to be done, blah, 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 blah. Right now, databases, and I've had a career in helping develop these different types of databases, they do really, really well, but they're very clunky. AI can be connected into those databases. So you don't have to get rid of something you've already spent millions of dollars adopting. You can embed AI software on top of your current software, and then that software can start going through your inspections, going through your audits, and finding out where those corrective actions are, where are they covered, what are the correct solutions that can be done for it, because you've answered the same thing over and over and over again. And it could start performing a lot of those tasks that then flag things a lot better. So that's just a couple of like hundreds of applications that we could talk about on this. And then on the robot side of things, Francine loves to talk about Flippy and some of the issues with that, but also there is robots being used on the field. So in the future, we're already seeing technology being adopted by berry growers and by other commodity growers and by other specialty crops like apples, etc. We're going to be seeing a lot more robots in the field. Assuming we can get the rare earth to to get the magnets that make these things go. But like I said, this is a revolution, so it's not going to change. This issue, what we'll talk about with the tariff stuff, may slow things down a bit, but this is where the future is. And so a lot of tasks that are done by humans that are dangerous are going to be done by robots in the future, which then starts adding risk, which Francine loves to talk about.
So they're also being used currently in warehouses for picking. So they'll
Oh
pick
yeah.
orders in warehouses, which is kind of cool, but also has a dangerous side to it. So Flippy is a product that is being used. It's a robot, and it's being used at fry stations where it'll drop fries, onion rings, and things along those lines, which is very cool. It lowers the workers' comp aspect, and there's less risk for contamination from employees. The burger Flippy, you need a human to put the burgers on the grill, but Flippy will scrape the grill for you, and Flippy will, employees then take the sandwiches off the grill. It uses a thermal vision to check the doneness. I worry about employees getting complacent about taking the temperature and relying too much on the technology for checking the doneness of the meat or whatever they happen to be using with the robot. That's a concern for me. AI machines are being used to prepare sandwiches, salads, and various other things. Beverages. I worry about cross contact, cross contamination. How are they cleaning these machines? How frequently are they being cleaned? How are they being monitored? I have a lot of questions. I don't know enough about the SOPs and the just the cleaning procedures, the the monitoring, I have a lot of questions about these. I was in a restaurant about a year ago and saw a robot bringing a tray of food out to the tables that was serving the food. Very cool. It reminded me of Rosie from the Jetsons, just bringing the food out to the table. That was so cool.
Didn't you take
Beverages.
a picture with Darren Detweiler with that? Isn't that
Darren
the
Detweiler took the picture. Yes, we had a video. We actually had a
Dr.
video.
Darren Detweiler? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I was on a cruise and I saw there was a bar that was fully automated, and you could stick your key card in and it would make beverages, alcoholic beverages, sodas, whatever you wanted. You stuck your card in and you punched in your order, and the machine, totally fully automated, would make your beverages. You stood there, it was a mess behind there, but again, it was fully automated. So that was very cool as well. If we could go ahead and move to our next slide, please.
One more thing though. So this is the opportunity for food. Yeah, go ahead and move over to the next slide. But this is the opportunity for food safety and quality people as well. Is as this becomes more robotic, what are the safety logs that need to be done? What are the cleaning that needs to be performed? Because we all know every little nook and cranny in each of those little robots is a fantastic hiding place for the little bugs that kill people, right? So how is that being mitigated? How is that being tracked, that mitigation process? And so that's a whole new level that food safety and quality people need to be involved in. And right now, it's all product engineers, marketing, and operations, and food safety people need to be put their hands in there.
Right. And I'm really trying to be cognizant of time, but that's where the additional jobs will come in,
Yes.
where people are concerned about, the taking jobs away from employees. Actually, I think additional and different jobs are going to come into play. So, anyway, that being said, I want to go ahead and move on to the
The
next
world's
slide.
on fire, Francine.
It is.
Sorry, we laugh.
It is.
I apologize. Our podcast is a lot like this. We talk about very, very important issues, but you gotta laugh your way through this, Craig, or else you just cry.
It is. And this is next. Back up.
Back up.
With that, she just wants us to move forward. We're done.
Yeah, she's like, question.
She's like, we've
It's
gone too
time.
far.
It's
You guys are
time.
out.
It's time.
So interconnectedness, what that means is that the global events, we're in a small world. While it is very huge, this interconnectedness, our global supply chain relationships means that we have localized networks, and we need to figure out how to cooperate on a together and make things work, because we just can't let things fall apart. It as
Yeah, and they
it
are
seems
falling
like they
apart.
are.
You've lit in a match. And so some of the issues, I mean, we won't go into deeply into what's going on globally. I'm sure everybody globally knows right now America has
Mm.
enacted a trade war. I mean, we've enacted a trade war globally. And so what that means is that on the food safety quality side, we need to be looking at suppliers a lot more. Because of this, suppliers that are already squeezed are going to be squeezed even further. And that means that corners may be cut, ingredients that were previous use, they may have to go find new ingredients because one of their ingredient suppliers has gone bankrupt, because they need to go find something less expensive. And with that could be both quality and safety issues. And so supplier audits through this period of time have to increase. Supplier expectations has to stay the same, and you're going to be pushed hard by your team to find new suppliers and to cut corners in supplier expectations, because we just need to get this ingredient. Our line won't be able to go, and that is going to be a huge issue.
The overarching theme here is, you're going to have food security challenges, food supply chain disruptions, and inflation. That's what all of this is going to create. And then, it leads us into what Matt was Matt was discussing, but all of those things are going to be impacted as a
And food
result of.
terrorism. Francine, quickly tell that story that you posted on LinkedIn about the last time there was a tariff war.
Yeah, so in 1989, two grapes were found in the port of Philadelphia that contained cyanide. And as I was reading this, I happened to be sitting at my desk eating grapes. Ironically, I don't know how that happened, but my life. Um, but what happened during that time, um, the United States was also in a trade war. These grapes had been imported from Chile. And we, at that point, decided that we were going to accept no more fruit from Chile. And in addition to us accepting no more fruit from Chile, other countries in the world also decided that they were going to accept no more fruit from Chile, Canada, Japan, Europe, all because of two grapes that were found in the port of Philadelphia. Now, this cost the Chilean fruit industry $200 million in massive job losses because of a tariff war. Um, that's what happens when,
Yeah.
or the potential of what can happen if we can't find
Yeah.
a way to work together
And
through
if you think you're in Europe and this doesn't affect you, all your clients are in Europe, this doesn't affect you. If a company, one of your suppliers goes out of business or is being financially harmed because of what's happening in the United States, this 100% affects you because that could be a shared supplier that now it may start cutting corners and that will affect you as well.
So part of this, I believe that part of the solution is we have limited control as to what our governments are doing. You know what I mean? We have as individuals limited control to that. But I think over the next several years, it's important to develop safer corporate cultures to build stronger food safety cultures, and that's part of what the solution is going to
Yeah,
be.
agreed. Okay, now we can go to questions.
Well, do you want food fraud or are we too long?
Yeah, well, we get to, why don't we move to questions and then you can just finish up with fruit fraud. That's right. So yeah, with also the minimization of profits, also be looking for food fraud as well. So are companies now shorting and changing the different ingredients or altering or putting
So
in fake ingredients in order to get the same margin, and that will also affect
I
everybody
want to
as well.
talk about fish. There was an Oceana study. Red snapper is one of the common fish that tend to be a food fraud item. They did a study. 7 out of 120 fish were found to be um, legitimate red snapper. The rest of them were another type of fish.
Seven out of 120.
That blew my mind. Olive oil is an item that often is found to be weakened with a different type of oil. Milk, sometimes water is added to milk. Customs fraud. Want to talk about customs fraud?
No, let's go to questions. Yeah,
Okay.
I guess customs fraud. Yeah, so just making sure that your clients aren't doing customs fraud. So
Okay.
changing the margin, saying that it's actually dropped, the price has dropped 10% in order to meet the 10% tariff. If they get caught in an audit, they're gonna have to pay back all of those plus possible prison time. And so you could lose a supplier because they're trying to cut corners in costs by doing customs fraud, and then ultimately go to jail. So if
This
you're
is
thinking about
regardless of
doing
what
it, don't
country
do it.
you're in. It doesn't matter what country you're in.
Doesn't matter.
Right. So go ahead.
Yeah. All right, questions. Sorry, we talk too much.
Thank you so much anyway, guys, for so live and so really intense session. And until we are waiting for questions from audience, I do have question. Really, it was super interesting presentation. And in terms of, let's say, the hottest topic at the beginning, which you described also, the reason why you called your podcast like this is about like not to be worried about what you are eating. So not to be scared that you will die because of eating this like salad or whatever. On your opinion, what exactly corporates or in general food producers should do a way more to prevent these like pathogens and to ensure that the food they produce is really pathogen free?
Don't trust your COAs. Um, Particularly over the next couple years, don't trust your COAs. I would be doing a lot more testing on my suppliers to make sure that they're correct. I would let my suppliers know that we're going to be testing a lot more. If you're already randomly sampling, um, X to the Y number of lots coming in, increase that 20% and let your suppliers know that you're going to be doing that. Um, and then that would just letting them know will probably minimize COA fraud. But definitely right now is a trust but verify moment.
And suppliers know, they know who checks and who doesn't. And
Yes.
they're going to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And do you think it's really depends on country as well, or it's for everyone, for every food producer?
Yeah. Francine's shaking her head no, and I also agree. So it's I in the past I would say that there's a bunch of countries that I would totally 100% trust. I would 100% Europe trust, most European countries. I would 100% trust the United States. Right now, desperate people, desperate companies do desperate things. And right now, we're going to have a lot of desperate companies. And so, people who would never cut corners in the past, not even think about doing it in order to save their company might. And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And we have the first question from audience. If COA fraud is a concern, are there any more cost-effective measures that a small food processors can take without increased testing?
Yeah. So if they are testing themselves and they're saying in the COA that they're testing it themselves, you could ask for those results from whatever laboratory. You could make sure that using a laboratory that is 17025 certified for the products at which they're testing. Um, at the detection limits and quantity that you are expecting, right? So there's a lot of different laboratories doing a lot of different things. You want to make sure that the right laboratory is doing the right things, um, and um, really make sure you have hard, hard, hard teeth. If you find something, if you're doing your random testing already, when something goes wrong, and what is on the document is not what you found when you did your testing. You need to have some really hard conversations. I would start cutting back from that supplier instantly and let them know that you mean business.
And I want to say that if you're on the receiving side, you're the person that's being tested. It doesn't hurt to have your own product tested because
Yeah,
mistakes are made. You know what I mean? So that never hurts either. It's even in foodborne illness outbreaks. I have always told companies, don't always rely on the company that's having your product tested. You should also test your product because there are mistakes that are made.
right. And there's right now there's a lot more companies doing a lot more testing. I'm one of them. We're going out and we're testing multiple categories, and just pulling product off the shelf and testing it. And while my company doesn't name names, doesn't name the names, we have that list. We have that in our database. And but there are a lot of other companies out there that do name names, like Consumer Reports, like Lead Safe Mama. There's a bunch of different companies or organizations out there that are going to grab your product off the shelf. They're going to test it and they're going to tell them everybody what they saw. So to Francine's point, exactly, make sure to start adding those things in that first slide that consumers are starting to recognize and that consumer reports and stuff are starting to test for. Make sure that gets added to your finished product testing. So instead of just pathogens, start testing for those heavy metals. Start testing for rates below uh, international expectations like the EU expectations and California Prop 65 expectations. Start looking and Asian expectations because what like products that don't get sent to Japan or South Korea, which test like every single lot, every single um, um, big container that comes in, they test it all. So producers know they're not going to send their stuff to them. They're going to send it to the United States. And so now we're seeing that there's more and more of that testing happening. And so those products that should not be sent anywhere that are being sent someplace, they're being found in the finished products right now.
Thank you so much. And also, you mentioned during your slides about this geopolitical instability and how does it impact supply chain safety in general?
Say about what instability?
This geopolitical with the current law changes and the increased taxes, etc., which is going on now with this crisis, which is happening globally.
Yeah. Um, Most companies know, or I should say most companies know who their direct suppliers are. Some know who their sub suppliers are. Very few know who their sub suppliers are, right? Um, and in that, when Francine was talking about the interconnectedness of our world, we don't even know where a lot of our food comes from, and that is going to change a bit with more with technology, with AI, with traceability. But during this period of time, uh, really having conversations with your suppliers about where they're getting their product and what risks they're like having this like real good partnership and conversation with your suppliers. Are you are you getting your product directly from a supplier that's producing it? And then what are their suppliers? Where are they getting their product from? What is the potential risks of each of those regions? And really understanding that is going to be key because this is shaking everything up.
And ultimately, it is the company's responsibility to know where those products are coming from. You know what I mean? Because if somebody does get sick,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
they're
and
holding
and,
back.
and yeah, and the back to the first slide that we were talking about with consumers. Consumers don't care that you didn't grow that product.
No, they don't.
Consumers care that they got it and got sick, or their kids got sick, or they died. Um, and so the lawsuit is going to affect you. The the even bigger issue is going to be the damage to your brand because something happened that you weren't aware of. So ignorance is not bliss in this particular instance.
Yeah,
Oh,
but also, yeah. Go on, go on.
we talk about this all the time. You know, when a brand has an outbreak and people get sick or people die, consumers remember that brand's name. They don't remember who the suppliers were to that product. They don't
Yeah,
care. You know, those suppliers may ultimately go out of business or may be sued, and all of that may happen. Consumers don't know that. They don't, frankly, care. They remember that brand.
yeah.
Yeah, that's actually comes to the next question. How should companies respond to a food safety incident which happened, outbreak, whatever?
Openly and honestly.
Yeah.
Consult with their attorney first. Consult with legal counsel first, but openly and honestly. I mean, just be honest and for God's sake, apologize. You know, I think that's you never. I'm not an attorney. I don't want to say that, but you know, my own gut is, you know, they consult with their attorney. That's first and foremost. foremost that apologize when people start dying or get sick. You owe an apology. Be open and honest that before you do anything, consult with your legal counsel. I'm not an attorney.
But don't let your legal counsel be creative. So, and what I mean by that is Francine's point about being open and honest is the most important aspect of it, regardless of what your attorney says. You need to say to your attorney, we need to get out in front of this. How do I do this to minimize the most, not just potential legal impact, but brand impact as well?
Mhm.
And because if they find out, if the FDA and the CDC point to you, your brand got these many people sick in these many different states or in this country, et cetera, et cetera, you're liable. They know it was you. You're liable. So by hiding and not talking about it only hurts you more because other people will start being able to tell their story and you won't be able to tell yours. And so we've done how many podcasts now with Bill Marler? Three podcasts, three
At
or
least.
four. And he talks about this a lot. And so if you want to go back and just look at the podcast with Bill Marler, particularly the one during the Boar's Head incident, and we also did one during the McDonald's thing. And he goes in and he talks about how companies should really be saying this. And he's doing it. Yes, he is an attorney. Yes, he makes money this way. And Francine and I banter and joke with him about it, that that he is Satan, but Satan can give good advice. So and he's been around the block for a long time, so I would go look at those, and then also uh, look at when Francine and I had these conversations during the Boar's, not the Boar's Head, the Chipotle incident many, many years ago when Chipotle lost so much in the stock. I would go watch the interview with the former CEO and founder of Chipotle and then do the exact opposite because
It was,
he did it
oh my
so
God.
terribly that he ruined his brand. And so go watch that video and then do the exact opposite.
I watched that live that morning on, I believe it
Yeah,
was the Today Show, and I
I
was
think he
just,
called me during it.
I was like, oh my God, what is he doing? Like, what is he doing?
Ruining his brand. That's what he was
Yeah.
doing.
It's like I wanted to just mute him. You know what I mean? It was like, just stop. It was
Yeah.
terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah. Unfortunately, guys, we have not so much time left. My question to both of you, Francine and Matt, can you summarize our topic today with the three key input for our attendees to take from this webinar and to think
Oh, wow.
about food
I'll
safety?
start with every crisis is an opportunity, and so you can look at it as the sky is falling. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna put my head in the sand and wait for the next couple of years. Or you can look at it and go, how can I make my company better with all of this stuff happening all at the same time? So you can pull your boots on and go to work, or you can hide. The going to work side is going to be much better for you. That's one point.
Yeah, and I would say that you know, you can never go wrong by putting the consumer first. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, we all want our customers to be happy. So if you make decisions by putting the consumer first and your customer first, you're never going to make a bad decision. I used to say, don't sell anything that you wouldn't eat yourself. I just
There's a
had
lot of
that
people
one.
that eat a lot of junk, so
That might not be the best advice, but if, I just think that's the best way to run your business, regardless of who you are.
yeah, and food safety culture is something that gets thrown around a lot, and it means different things for different people. But as we're going through, and I guess our whole entire presentation was food safety culture in a nutshell. How are you going to put your consumer first? How are you going to use the new technology to make yourself better? and make your organization better. And I say both yourself better and your organization better because you have to learn it. Everybody has to learn it. The nice thing about this revolution is we're all starting from ground zero. And so those that actually learn this new AI and machine learning stuff, those are going to be the people that are going to be able to help their companies the most and alter their culture the most. And then with all the crises that are going on internationally with suppliers, don't just think about food safety culture as an isolated incident within a box or within a field, within your own factory, within your own field. Think of how do I enforce food safety culture all the way down my supply chain, from where the inputs come into the ground all the way up to my processing plant or distribution facility, et cetera.
And I want to add to that, it's impossible to have a good food safety culture without a good corporate culture. That's where you
Yes.
start with a good food safety culture. You have to have a good corporate culture because you can't have one without the other.
Thank you so much. It was just unbelievable, inspiring, and so useful session. Where are your hearts, guys? I see a lot of hearts, claps, really a lot of appreciation to you. And me, as always, I see you on our next Academy session. Have a nice Easter holidays and have a lovely day or evening whenever and whichever time zone you are in. Bye, everyone, and see you on our next session. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.